He didn't just kick me. He did it in front of everyone, his friends, our neighbors, and even the new receptionist from his office who had no business at our housewarming party. One minute I was handing out drinks and trying to ignore the tightness in my chest. The next, I was flat on the floor, heels twisted, guests frozen in silence. He stood over me, holding a champagne flute, grinning like he had just won a trophy. "She talks too much," he muttered, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Now you all see what I deal with every day." Some laughed. Not everyone. But enough did. I lay there, humiliated, bruised, not just physically. I felt stripped of every ounce of dignity I had clung to in the past 4 years of our marriage. And he, Victor, the man I married and built an empire with, didn't even flinch when I crawled to my feet. That was the moment I knew. The man I loved was long gone. And the monster who replaced him? I was going to destroy him, silently, legally, and completely. If you've ever been humiliated by someone who promised to protect you, hit that like button, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Tales of Revenge, because what comes next will leave you breathless. I met Victor in the narrow aisles of a second-hand bookstore in Ikoyi, Lagos. He was charming, well-spoken, and completely broke. I was managing my aunt's food delivery startup, and he was trying to start a small tech blog with a busted laptop. What I didn't know back then was that I was his way up. Not a partner, not a lover, a ladder. We dated for 6 months before he proposed. Fast. But back then, I thought it was romantic. My friends called him ambitious. I called him focused. I had just gotten an inheritance from my late mother, N5 million, which I used to co-fund his digital dream. Within 2 years, he was making money. Not a lot, but enough to afford better clothes, an apartment, and a car. He hired staff. Got noticed. I kept managing our finances until he said we needed to divide roles. "I'll handle the business accounts," he said. "You just focus on being my queen." My queen. But slowly I became invisible in my own home. His meetings became parties. His co-workers became flirty women who showed up at odd hours. I found hair on our pillows that wasn't mine, perfumes that weren't mine, lipstick on his shirt that sure wasn't mine. And each time I asked, he gaslit me. "Are you accusing me? You're paranoid. You don't trust me because you're insecure." So I shrunk. I shrunk so he could shine. Until that night. We were hosting a promotion celebration. Victor had just landed a partnership deal with a Nigerian tech giant. He invited all his friends, colleagues, and even some investors. I didn't know the guest list had over 60 people. I didn't even know the party was happening until 48 hours before. But I stayed quiet. I ordered food, cleaned, arranged the hall, put on my best gown. As I walked around with a tray of drinks, I heard him laughing with his friends. One of them, a sharp-jawed man in a linen suit, said something about me being too traditional. Victor shrugged. "She's from a different world, but she's learning her place." That one sentence shattered the last bit of peace I had. I turned to walk away, but the heel of my shoe caught on the rug. I stumbled, and he reached out, not to help me, but to push. Hard. I fell. And he laughed. The party went on. Music resumed. But something in me died. I went upstairs, locked the door, and cried on the tiled bathroom floor. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. But I did one thing. I opened my old files. Business licenses, bank statements, deed of property, even his power of attorney. I realized one thing that almost made me smile. The house we lived in, still registered in my name. His business, co-signed under the startup I registered. His car, financed through my late mother's trust account. He was walking around with borrowed power, and I was about to pull the plug. The next morning, he didn't apologize. Instead, he tossed his keys on the table and asked why I had embarrassed him in front of his friends. That's when I smiled. "Embarrassed you?" I said softly. "Victor, you haven't seen anything yet." He chuckled like I was bluffing. "You can't do anything. You're just the wife." "No," I said, standing tall. "I'm the owner." He froze, but only for a moment. Then he dismissed me and walked out. That's when I made the first call, to the bank, to freeze our joint accounts, to revoke his signatory rights on the business account. By noon, his card declined at a gas station. By 2 p.m., the electricity company sent a notice for unpaid bills, ones he was supposed to settle from the business account. By 5 p.m., he was calling me, but I didn't answer. Instead, I called the locksmith. By nightfall, the locks were changed, the house security code reset, the gate remotes reprogrammed. Victor had no clue. He came home at 11:42 p.m. Tipsy, annoyed, banging on the gate like a madman. "Open up, dummy, I live here." But I just stood by the curtain, lights off, smiling quietly. Because in the dark, something felt new. Something felt powerful. That night, I didn't just lock the door. I locked the chapter. And the war had only just begun. If you've ever been underestimated, stay tuned. Next chapter will break your heart before it gives you justice. Like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. The best is yet to come. Victor slept in his car that night, and I watched him through the upstairs window like a silent ghost in my own story. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just stood there, arms folded, until his headlights died and his rage turned into confusion. He paced for almost an hour, banging on the gate, shouting into the intercom, cursing me like I was his enemy. But the real enemy was his own arrogance. At 3 a.m., I finally went to bed, not because I was tired, but because I knew the game had started, and I held every card. If you've ever taken your power back in silence, click that like button and subscribe, because what happened in the morning would make you gasp. By sunrise, he was gone. I assumed he drove off to his friend Kunli's place, the same one who had laughed when I fell, the same one who once told Victor, "If she starts acting stubborn, there are younger girls who'd love to be with a man like you." Good. Let him go be their problem now. I dressed sharply that morning. Not for him, not for show, for me. I wore the same white power suit I wore the day I first registered my company 5 years ago, the day I stepped out of my aunt's shadow and into my own story. Then I drove to the bank. "Good morning, Ma," the manager greeted, his eyes wide. "We received your instructions to freeze both business and personal joint accounts." "Yes," I replied, "and I need full withdrawal access moved to me. Effective today." He hesitated. I handed him the document. My mother's trust authorization, the incorporation certificate, the will, the business startup contract. Every paper that proved I wasn't just the co-founder, I was the one who funded everything, and that included the account he'd been squandering on hotel rooms and club nights. The manager reviewed the documents for 10 minutes and said, "It's done. You are now the sole signatory." I nodded. No smile, no joy. This wasn't revenge. It was restoration. That afternoon, I visited our main business office in Lekki Phase 1. Victor hadn't shown up. No one had seen him since the weekend party. Some staff whispered. One even asked me quietly, "Madam, are you okay? We heard he hit you." I looked at her for a moment and said, "He kicked me, in front of all of you, and now I'm kicking him out." Silently. She nodded. "We stand with you, Ma." By 3 p.m., I had issued new instructions. All company decisions must now go through me. All access cards tied to Victor's name were revoked. I appointed my cousin Tara as the interim operations manager. Victor received a company-wide email later that evening. Following internal restructuring, Mr. Victor Adeyemi is suspended pending investigation into financial mismanagement. He called me 17 times, and I let it ring. Then he sent voice notes. "This is madness, Ada. You're ruining me. You're being emotional. Just open the gate and let's talk. You think freezing my accounts and changing locks makes you powerful? I made you." That last one made me laugh out loud. He made me? The man who had nothing but dreams when I met him? No, sir. I was the soil, the sun, and the seed. He just stood in my shade. But the day wasn't over. At 6 p.m., he returned, this time with 2 police officers. Yes, you read that right. Police. He came to our house claiming I had locked him out unlawfully and seized his property. I watched them from the upstairs balcony as they knocked. Madam, please come out. This man says he's the legal owner of this house. I came down slowly, papers in hand. Calm, graceful. Officers, I said politely. Do you have a warrant? No, one replied. But this man, this house, I said firmly, is in my name. I have the C of O. I have the deed. I built this with my inheritance. I handed them copies. And this man, I continued, has no tenancy agreement, no ownership, and as you can see from the bruises on my arm, I rolled up my sleeve. He assaulted me 2 nights ago. Their eyes shifted. One officer turned to Victor and asked, Oga, na true? Victor stammered. The officer sighed. Oga, if madam get paper, you no get case. This one na domestic matter. Go court if you no gree. They left. Victor stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I made one mistake, he spat. No, I said softly, closing the gate. You made 1,000, and I remembered every one. That night, I received a call from Tara. Auntie, she whispered, you need to see this. She sent a screenshot. Victor had made a burner Facebook account. He posted pictures of me with captions like, this woman used juju to take over my company. She's a fraud. She's lying to everyone. She's unstable. If anything happens to me, blame her. He was unraveling publicly. Good. Let him scream in the dark, because I had light and receipts. But I underestimated one thing, how far a wounded man could go when he realizes you no longer fear him. The next day, Victor showed up at my office, not at the gate, inside. He had somehow convinced one of the junior staff to let him in. He stormed into my office like a wild dog, sweating, disheveled, red-eyed. You think you've won, he shouted. I stood. Tara, I called. Before he could lunge, 2 security guards dragged him out. I followed behind, heels sharp against the marble, head high. Victor Adeyemi, I said in front of all my staff. You are now trespassing. If you return here again, I will file a restraining order. He shouted something vulgar as they forced him out. But I didn't flinch. I looked at my staff. I apologize, I said calmly. This won't happen again. And I meant it, because that evening I made another call. To the real authorities. To finally file a restraining order. And something else too. I called a lawyer. Is there a way, I asked, to remove his name permanently from our business? I want him erased, legally, entirely. The lawyer paused, then said the words that made my lips twitch. Yes, and we can start immediately. If you think that was satisfying, just wait until you hear what she does next. Hit that like button, drop a comment if you've ever been underestimated, and don't forget to subscribe. The very next morning, my neighbor Sheila knocked on my door with a raised brow and an expression that screamed she had already heard the latest gossip. I heard you were crying outside last night. That man, he kicked you in front of everyone? She asked gently, handing me a small flask of tea like she was handing me dignity. Girl, I'd have slapped the devil out of him. I smiled weakly, accepting the tea. Yeah, he really did. She sat down beside me in my tiny apartment. What are you going to do? And that was the question that had haunted me all night. What was I going to do? I didn't have much, but I still had my pride. And my name wasn't going to be Mrs. Walk All Over Me, not anymore. Sheila took one look at me and said, if you need help packing his bags, I'm your girl. But I wasn't going to pack anything. I wasn't going to scream or cry anymore. I was going to handle this smart. That's when I remembered the bank account. Back when things were sweet between us, I had helped Raymond set up his business account. He needed someone trustworthy, And who better than his loyal wife? My name was on the business documentation. Legally. He never changed it because he didn't expect me to have a backbone. I pulled out the paperwork from a box beneath my bed. My heart pounded as I flipped through the pages. And there it was. My name right next to his, listed as a co-owner of the account. Raymond had been making money from the logistics company we started together. But the money was in our name. He must have forgotten. Or maybe he thought I'd forgotten who I was. Well, I hadn't. I made my way to the bank. The banker glanced up at me with a smile. "How can we help you today?" "I want to freeze all withdrawals from this account," I said, sliding the documents across the table. "Are you the primary or secondary account holder?" "I'm both. We're co-owners." He scanned the files. His eyebrows rose. "You're right." Within 30 minutes, I had frozen the account. Raymond wouldn't be buying his mistress another watch or paying for champagne brunches with our money again. It was petty. And it was perfect. Later that evening, I sat in my car parked across from the house we used to share. His friends were outside again, this time drinking and dancing. I recognized the loud music and even louder laughter. I watched as Raymond walked out with another woman on his arm. Someone new. Not even the same mistress from before. This man was moving through women like he moved through money, carelessly. I stared at him from behind the wheel, unseen, unbothered, cold. He was laughing like he had everything under control. But I was the one who had just cut the tap. The next day, the first explosion happened. I woke up to 12 missed calls from Raymond. The first voicemail was calm. "Babe, I think there's an issue with the bank account. Can you check?" The second was tense. "Hey, I don't know what you did, but I can't access anything. Fix it. Now." The third? "You're playing with fire, woman. You think you can embarrass me and touch my money?" I smirked. It was never his alone. I built that company. I ran those early logistics schedules. I dealt with vendors, angry clients, and even applied for the startup grant that got us going. But he thought he could erase me and still eat from my hand. I had only just started. Raymond showed up at my apartment around 3 p.m. His shirt was wrinkled, and his face was flushed with rage. "You locked the account?" he barked as soon as I opened the door. I didn't flinch. "Yes, I did." "You crazy? That's my business. My livelihood." "Our business," I corrected. "And if you're going to beat me in public, you better get used to earning in private." He shoved the door frame with his palm. "You want to fight dirty?" I tilted my head. "No, I want to fight smart." He looked like he wanted to lunge at me, but for the first time he saw that I wasn't scared. The thing about being kicked is, once you hit the ground, you either stay down or you rise up angry. He stormed off, and that's when I started the second phase of my plan, changing the locks. I called a locksmith from across town, someone who didn't know Raymond or his people. He arrived by sunset. "You sure about this?" the man asked. I nodded. "Change them all, and install one of those fingerprint locks too. I don't want a single key opening that house except mine." Because I was done being the woman who begged to be respected. Now I was the woman who gave silent consequences. 2 nights later, I sat inside the house again, alone. It smelled like jasmine and justice, the scent of a woman who reclaimed her space. Raymond hadn't tried to return. I was sure he thought I wouldn't go that far. But the moment he did, he would find his key didn't work, and his account was empty. Because guess what? I also moved my half of the funds to a separate savings account. Legally, carefully, quietly. That night, I danced barefoot on the cold tile in my satin robe, sipping tea, my playlist on full blast, until I saw headlights sweep across the living room. He was back. He stepped out of his car, walked up to the front door, and tried the key. It jammed. He tried again. Nothing. I watched through the peephole as he pounded his fist on the door. "Open this damn door, woman! You think you can lock me out of my house?" I didn't answer. I watched him rage, then retreat to his car calling someone on the phone. Then I turned off the lights and waited. Because I knew the real storm hadn't even begun yet. If you thought freezing the account was bold, wait until you see what she does next. Hit that like button, drop a comment if you've ever been taken for granted, and make sure to subscribe, because next chapter is going to be her most powerful move yet. I didn't open the door. I didn't shout. I didn't scream. I simply watched him beat his fist against the wood like a madman locked out of his own kingdom. Only this time, the queen had taken the crown, the keys, and the kingdom too. He kicked the door again. Open up! You think you're smart? You forget who you married? No, I didn't forget. I remembered everything, every insult, every laugh shared with his friends at my expense, every time he called me useless when I had built the damn company from scratch. I had remembered too much and he had remembered too little. I stepped away from the door and let him scream himself hoarse. I was not the same woman who used to cry in the bathroom after his outbursts. That woman was gone. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a new alert. Raymond had tried to open another account using company funds, but the bank blocked the attempt because I had flagged the business name. And as co-owner, I had every right. I knew it would only be a matter of time before he retaliated in a way that wasn't just yelling. So I called my lawyer. Her name was Amaka, and she was as fierce as they came. You did good freezing the accounts, she said after reviewing everything. Now we prepare for the legal blowback. And, if he tries to force his way back into the property, well, we'll make sure that ends in court. And what about the house? I asked. He says it's his. She leaned forward on the video call. Do you have the original title documents? I nodded. It was deeded in my name. He insisted I be the one to sign at the time because my credit score was better. He just never thought I'd remember that. She chuckled. Then he has no legal footing. Let him try to walk into a courtroom with that nonsense. That night Raymond returned. This time he didn't knock. He stood outside the gate, pacing back and forth, yelling into the phone. I watched from upstairs, lights off, heart thudding, but calm. He had one hand on his waist, his phone pressed against his ear, his eyes scanning the windows like a predator. His voice pierced the silence. Do you know what she did to me? Froze my money. Changed my locks. She thinks she's the boss now. This is my house, my street. I made her. No, Raymond, you used me. You humiliated me, and now I was making sure you never did it again. Suddenly I heard a bang at the gate. Then another. Then another. It wasn't just yelling this time. He was trying to break in. I picked up my phone and dialed 911. Ma'am, do you feel in danger? The dispatcher asked. Yes, I replied. My ex-husband is trying to break into my home. Is he armed? I looked down. He wasn't holding anything, just his fists and rage. Not visibly, but I need help. Within 10 minutes, 2 officers arrived. They pulled him aside. I watched through the curtains as he tried to explain, waving his arms, pointing at the house, shouting something about ownership. But when they asked for proof, he had none. Your name's not on the title? One officer asked. It doesn't matter, he screamed. It does in the state of Georgia, the officer replied. You have no right to be here. They handed him a citation for harassment and trespassing and told him to leave the premises. And then it happened. The moment that changed the tone of everything. As he got into his car to drive off, the new woman, the same one he'd brought to the barbecue the day he kicked me, stepped out of the passenger seat. She didn't say anything. She just looked up at the house, then at me standing behind the curtain, and she smiled. Not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile women give each other when they think they've won. I pulled the curtain shut. She didn't know what was coming, because my plan was never just to get revenge. My plan was to dismantle his entire facade, legally, financially, and publicly. And I had just begun. The next day I filed for full ownership of the business under grounds of abandonment, misuse of assets, and verbal assault within a domestic partnership. Amaka helped me gather every receipt, every email, every document, even the texts where he admitted to giving money to other women from our joint account. When the papers were served, Raymond exploded. "How dare you take the business from me? I built it." "No," I said calmly. "I ran it while you entertained side chicks and beat your chest at beer parlors." He tried to fight it in court, but when the judge saw the numbers, the texts, the video from the night he got kicked out, and the title deed to the house, the courtroom fell silent, and the judge said the words that made Raymond sit down like someone had slapped him with reality. "Mr. Raymond, it appears the house, the business, and even the funds in dispute are all under your ex-wife's legal control. This court sees no evidence that you contributed in any documented way. Your request is denied." Raymond's jaw fell open. The new woman sitting behind him looked away. And me? I sat with my legs crossed and didn't even blink. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's paperwork. But just when I thought the storm was over, a stranger approached me in the courthouse hallway after the hearing. She was tall, with dark lipstick and a calm voice. "You don't know me," she said, "but I'm one of the other women he lied to, and I think we need to talk." She froze his account. She changed the locks. She even beat him in court. But wait till you see what this other woman reveals in next chapter. If you've ever been underestimated, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe, because the best twist is still coming. "I think we need to talk." Her voice was calm. Too calm. We stood in the courthouse hallway, her dark lipstick sharp against her light brown skin, her eyes not blinking as she looked directly at me. She didn't look angry. Not exactly. She looked resolved, like someone who had been holding something in for too long. I glanced at Amaka, my lawyer. She raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "Talk about what?" I asked. She stepped closer. "About Raymond, and the lies he told both of us." I let out a breath and motioned toward the coffee shop across the street. 10 minutes, I said. "Let's hear it." We sat in a corner booth. She didn't waste time. "My name's Zuri. I was seeing Raymond for over a year. He told me you were separated, said you were emotionally unstable. He said the business was failing because of your spending." I almost laughed. He always did project his sins onto others. Zuri nodded. "He promised we'd start fresh. He said he was moving into his own apartment soon. I didn't know about the barbecue day. I didn't know you were still married." "Did you know he was draining our joint account to fund your dates?" I asked calmly. She blinked. "No." "Did you know he tried to use company money to rent a luxury penthouse in Abuja?" Zuri's mouth parted slightly. "No. I only knew he was throwing a lot of cash around." "Well," I said, "it wasn't his cash." Zuri looked down at her cup. "I didn't come here to defend him. I came because he's doing the same thing again." My brows lifted. "To who?" She reached into her purse and handed me a folded piece of paper. "Her name is Angela. I met her by accident. She thought she was the only one. Turns out he's juggling 3 of us at once, and now he's talking about starting another company." I opened the paper. It was a printout of WhatsApp screenshots, messages between Raymond and Angela. He was promising to register a business in her name. He said he wanted to start over, said I was crazy and controlling. Typical. "So what do you want from me?" I asked, voice steady. "I want to help you take him down," Zuri said. I stared at her. Her hands were folded neatly in front of her. No dramatic gestures, no fake tears. Just a quiet, focused rage, the kind I had once swallowed for years. "What's in it for you?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Peace." That evening, I took Zuri up on her offer. She gave me access to her chat logs, her receipts, her voice memos. She even had a recording of Raymond bragging to his friend about how easy it was to scam emotional women. I handed everything over to Amaka. "We're building a profile now," she said. "This isn't just petty revenge anymore. This is a fraud pattern." I was finally seeing the bigger picture. Raymond didn't just betray me. He had a system, a lifestyle based on lies, manipulation, and draining the women who believed in him. And it was time to expose it all. A week later, Amaka filed for an emergency injunction that would freeze any new businesses opened in Raymond's name pending investigation. He got served the papers at his gym. The same gym where he used to laugh with his boys and show off his new sneakers, bought with my money. Now the same boys were whispering about him. The whispers turned into group chats, and then the posts started circulating. Is this your king? He was driving her car. She built the company and he still cheated? Karma wears heels this year. Raymond tried to push back with a post of his own, a blurry video of him sitting in a hotel lobby, trying to look composed. I just want peace, he said. I'm not perfect, but I've always tried to do right. But the comments didn't buy it. You kicked her in public, remember? You moved your side chick into her house. This ain't about peace. This about you losing control. The court date for the full business ownership ruling was set. But while the legal battle loomed, I had one more thing to do. I reached out to Angela, the current woman. She didn't answer my first message, but 2 days later she replied, "Can we talk?" I met her in a busy restaurant. She looked tired, worn. "He told me you were dangerous," she said quietly. "He said you were trying to ruin him out of jealousy." "I'm not trying," I said. "I already have." Angela blinked. He said the business was in his name. I took out a copy of the title documents, right there at the table. I own it, I built it, and he never expected me to fight back. She nodded slowly. He told me we'd move to South Africa, said we'd start a skincare brand. I gave her a tired smile. Did he ask for an investment yet? Her eyes filled with tears. Just last week. I slid her a card. My lawyer's name is on there. If you need protection, she'll help you. Don't let him turn you into another Zuri. Or me. She wiped her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." That night, I sat alone on my porch. The house was quiet. No yelling, no footsteps stomping through the hallway. Just me and my breath and the soft, healing silence of peace. But as I got up to go inside, my phone vibrated again. A message from a blocked number. "You think you've won, but you haven't seen the last of me." I stared at the screen, and then I smiled. Because Raymond still didn't understand one thing. This wasn't about winning. It was about taking back everything he thought I couldn't live without. And now he was the one standing outside the gates, watching it all slip away. I didn't know what was louder, Daniel banging on the gate like a madman, or my own heartbeat as I watched him from the upstairs window. He was drenched in sweat, hair disheveled, wrinkled clothes that screamed he hadn't slept. His gold chain no longer glistened with pride, just desperation. He had finally realized it. He had nothing left. And me? I was sipping tea in the bedroom I once begged him not to lock me out of. "Open this gate, you hear me? Open it!" he roared. But the new security man, Emeka, just stood firm. I'd hired him the same morning the locks were changed. Tall, trained, paid on time, loyal to me, not Daniel. I turned away from the window, heart pounding but steady. This was only the beginning. I had frozen his bank accounts, emptied his wardrobe from the main house, removed his name from the club membership, and changed all access codes. Daniel wasn't just locked out of the house. He was locked out of the life he used to mock me from. 3 days earlier, I had met with my lawyer in secret, Mr. Ada Tokunbo. Calm older man dressed always in navy suits. He had handled my parents' estate before they passed, and he was now handling my escape. "You understand this is war, right?" he asked as he slid documents across the desk. I nodded slowly, lips trembling. He slapped me, humiliated me in public, locked me outside like a dog, took my money and gave it to his girlfriend. If this isn't war, I don't know what is. He didn't smile. He just handed me the power of attorney forms and a property reclaim affidavit. You own everything. The house is under your maiden name, not his. The joint account can be frozen with a statement of financial abuse. And his company account, well, he registered it using your capital. It's technically yours. I swallowed hard. I don't want revenge. I just want him to feel what I felt. But that was only partly true, because deep down, I wanted him to break. I hired movers that night. Daniel was at one of his boys' hangouts, likely bragging about how he finally tamed me. He had no idea that while he sipped beer and laughed, his tailored suits were being tossed into trash bags. By morning, the house had been reset. New locks, new codes, new staff. Everything the mistress had ever touched, burned in a private backyard fire. The bedroom sheets, the wine glasses, the old pillow she slept on when I was away, all turned to ash. Daniel showed up the next day laughing, until he wasn't. "Why are you being stupid, Ifeoma?" he shouted at the gate, voice cracking from the sun and rage. "Come outside, let's settle this like adults." "I am an adult," I said from the balcony, arms folded. "You're the child who thought I wouldn't find my backbone." He scoffed. "You think this will last? I'll go to the police. I'll go to the press." "Go ahead," I said. "Just know, before you do, I've already filed a restraining order. And your side chick's car, that Benz you registered under my company, it's gone." He froze. You're bluffing." I tossed a document down to him. It landed at his feet with the kind of slap that echoed louder than any insult. He picked it up and turned pale. It was a court order. His access revoked, his shares frozen, his name erased. His friends, two of them standing across the street, laughing quietly, began to back away. He was no longer their king. He was now a homeless man in designer shoes. That night, I finally cried. Not from sadness, but from freedom. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining the cold floor Daniel would sleep on that night. I imagined the mistress texting him and getting no reply because his phone line had been disconnected too. I didn't just take back my dignity. I reclaimed my life. But just as I started to drift into a rare, peaceful sleep, my phone lit up with a name I never expected. The mistress. The message? "You think you've won. Wait till you find out what he told me about you." If you thought that was powerful, just wait. Because what next? It's a whole new level of disrespect. Hit like, comment with, "Reclaim your crown," and subscribe. Because the next move will leave you speechless. My thumb hovered over the message. "You think you've won? Wait till you find out what he told me about you." The words clawed at my chest like a knife, not because I was scared, but because I had spent the last few weeks feeling like I had finally closed the chapter. Yet here she was, the woman who wore my perfume, drank from my wine glass and laughed in the arms of my husband, threatening to rip open wounds that were only just beginning to scar. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a long breath and walked downstairs, where Emika, my new gatekeeper, stood alert as ever. "Did Daniel come back?" I asked. "No, madam, but someone parked across the road in a red car about 30 minutes ago." Woman. She didn't come to the gate, just sat there watching. I knew it was her. Sandra, the mistress, the woman Daniel once claimed was just a friend from work. The next morning, the doorbell rang. Not the gate. The front door. Which was strange, because no one had that access anymore. When I opened it, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Standing there, perfectly dressed in a white power suit, was Sandra. Bold red lipstick, heels too high for daylight, and in her hand, an envelope. "I'm not here to fight," she said before I could speak. "I just think you deserve to know the truth." I didn't respond. I studied her face, expecting arrogance, but what I saw in her eyes wasn't pride. It was pity. "May I?" she asked, gesturing inside. "No." She handed me the envelope. "Then at least read this. You'll know why I'm here once you do." Then she turned and walked away. Just like that. I sat on the staircase with the envelope in my lap. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were photographs, Daniel and me, from our wedding, from the birth of our first son, from a vacation I barely remembered. Then letters, love letters, all of them written by me. Some as old as 10 years, some more recent. They weren't originals, they were photocopies, with handwriting analysis documents stapled to each one. Then the note. He told me you were mentally unstable, that you had a history of forgery and obsessive behavior, that you faked all your pregnancies to trap him. He said you wrote these letters to yourself and claimed they were his. He said you made up your childhood abuse story to gain sympathy. I believed him. Until he told me the same story about another woman, and another. I'm not your enemy. But I couldn't stay silent. Sandra. I dropped the envelope. I couldn't breathe. My entire world began spinning. That man hadn't just abused me. He reconstructed me. He told people I was crazy. He planted stories to destroy me even after he was gone. I had spent nights crying about what he did to me physically. But now I realized the real damage was psychological warfare. By evening, I had regained my calm. I wasn't a fool. Sandra wasn't here just for closure. She knew I had power now, and she was scared of what I could expose next. But still, I needed answers, so I messaged her. Meet me tomorrow, same spot, but this time you talk. Everything. And she did. We met at a quiet rooftop lounge. She looked tired. Human. He told me you beat him, she said. Said he stayed with you out of pity. I laughed bitterly. He used to hide my phone so I couldn't call my family. Once he hit me so hard I lost a tooth and he told people I fell in the shower. Sandra nodded slowly. He said you stole his company, but the accountant said the shares were always in your name. I leaned in. You thought you were special, didn't you? She didn't deny it. Let me guess. He said I was crazy, that I was nothing without him, that I ruined his life. Tears welled in her eyes. He told me I was the reason he found peace, she whispered. He said I was the one who healed him. I leaned back, smiling coldly. He's a poet of pain, but his verses are always lies. After our conversation, I left with one conclusion. Daniel had never loved anyone. Not me, not her, not himself. He was a narcissist, a destroyer, and we were both his victims. But I wasn't going to just survive. I was going to finish this story with my name on the front page. Back home, I called my lawyer again. Adeto Kunbo, I want everything. Not just the house, the cars, the land in Port Harcourt, even the joint shares in the oil rig investment. He chuckled. I see the lioness is fully awake. I smiled. Let's make sure he never lies to another woman again. I'm not just kicking him out. I'm erasing his shadow. The next morning, a court date was scheduled, and this time, he had to show up in person. No more dodging papers, no more texting from unknown numbers. The courtroom would be the arena, and I had a front row seat to his downfall. All rise. The voice of the bailiff echoed through the courtroom as the judge entered, a towering woman in black robes, glasses low on her nose, and a sternness in her stride that demanded attention. I stood slowly, my palms dry, my heart still, but not with fear, with power. I had waited months for this moment. And Daniel. He walked in like he owned the place, a navy blue suit, a crooked grin. As if this courtroom was a stage, and he was still the main actor. But this wasn't his show anymore. He didn't even glance at me as he sat with his attorney. Instead, he whispered something to the woman beside him, Sandra. Yes, she was here, but not on his side this time. The judge called my name first. I rose, walked forward, and spoke with the kind of fire that comes only from walking through hell and still being able to stand. Your Honor, I'm not here out of bitterness. I'm here because I was silenced, mocked, beaten, cheated on, and almost destroyed in a marriage that was designed to erase me. The room went quiet. I looked directly at Daniel. He didn't just kick me. He humiliated me in front of his friends. Then he emptied our joint account, took my jewelry, my name, and tried to erase my sanity. Daniel leaned in to whisper something, but the judge raised a hand. "Mr. Daniel, you will have your turn. For now, let her speak." I continued, but what he didn't know was that while he was out building castles on lies, I was keeping records, and I came prepared. I handed the clerk a USB drive and a folder of documents. "Your Honor, these contain everything. Proof of my ownership in our business, bank statements, text messages, voice recordings, and evidence that he forged my signature on multiple property transfer forms." The judge skimmed the folder. Sandra looked away. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Then it was his turn. He stood, cleared his throat, and went into a rehearsed speech about how I was emotionally manipulative, how I abandoned him, and how he deserved his share of the assets because he built the empire with me. I didn't flinch, because the moment his lawyer said, "My client requests 50% of the real estate holdings," the judge's brows rose. She turned to me. "You mentioned property holdings. Is there a record of who owns what?" "Yes, ma'am," I said, pulling out the final card I had held for this very moment. I handed over the last document, a notarized deed. It read, "All properties, shares, and investment assets under the Daniel and my name family trust shall revert fully to my name in the event of divorce due to abuse, infidelity, or neglect, under the marital contract signed and filed on March 10th, 2012. Daniel blinked. "That's fake." The judge examined it. Her assistant checked the file system. It was real and legally binding. You could hear a pin drop. The judge looked up. "So you signed this contract, Mr. Daniel?" I didn't read it," he stuttered. "That's not the court's fault," she snapped. She adjusted her glasses. "This court hereby declares all real estate properties, business holdings, and joint assets legally belonging to my name, based on the evidence in the standing marital trust." Then she looked at Daniel. "You are hereby ordered to vacate all premises, surrender all keys, and have no access to her bank accounts, properties, or business operations effective immediately." Daniel stood up. "This is a setup." The judge slammed the gavel. "Sit down or be escorted out." He didn't sit. He stood frozen, because everything he had left was gone. The business, mine. The house, mine. The accounts, closed to him. The car he drove to court, leased under my company's name, already locked. He turned to Sandra, but she stood too, picked up her purse, and walked away, without a word. Outside the courtroom, the reporters were waiting, not because we were famous, but because Sandra had tipped off the press. "Woman wins full real estate empire after abusive husband demands divorce share." The headline went viral by sundown. I walked into my home that evening, unlocked the doors with my keys, and poured myself a glass of wine. The silence wasn't empty. It was victory. The next morning, I posted a message on our former joint business page. "To our loyal customers and staff, effective immediately, all operations are under new management. To those who believed lies, may the truth find you. To those who stood silent, I heard your silence louder than words. And to those healing from betrayal, stay standing, because one day they will need your mercy more than your anger." I didn't post Daniel's name. I didn't need to. His story was now a warning, and I was the one holding the pen. If you felt this story hit deep, don't scroll past, tap subscribe, and turn on notifications for more tales of justice, healing, and silent strength. And tell us below, what would you do if someone tried to erase you? Let your voice be heard. I was trending on Twitter and didn't even know it. The morning after the court ruling, I woke up to dozens of missed calls, texts from unknown numbers, and a doorbell that wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, curious neighbors, opportunists. They all wanted a piece of the story, But I didn't care about the noise. I cared about the silence in my house, the silence in my soul, the silence that came after surviving a storm and realizing the roof didn't cave in. But just when I thought the battle was done, Daniel started a war I never saw coming. 3 days after the verdict, my assistant, Linda, rushed into my office panting. "You need to see this," she said, holding out her phone. It was a YouTube video. The title, "My Side of the Story, How She Lied and Took Everything, The Truth About My Divorce," posted by Daniel. There he was, sitting in a small apartment, fake tears in his eyes, twisting the truth like he twisted my arm so many nights. "She left me with nothing," he said, voice cracking. "I gave her the best years of my life. She manipulated the courts, froze my account, took my car, and now I'm sleeping on my friend's couch." He even added dramatic piano music in the background. I blinked, stunned. Over 240,000 views, 5,000 comments, people believing him. Men go through so much. She seems like the controlling one. No man deserves to be broken like this. Linda looked at me. "You want me to issue a press statement?" I shook my head. "No. I want him to keep digging." But the lies didn't stop there. Daniel began selling fake stories to blogs, claiming I abused him emotionally, claiming I cheated with our former accountant, even hinting that I used voodoo to win the case. I stayed silent. I knew silence was my sharpest blade. But Sandra? She didn't stay silent. One rainy afternoon, she showed up at my gate. I was tempted not to let her in, but something in her eyes made me open that door. She looked thinner, drained, wearing no makeup, a hoodie over her head. "I need to talk," she said. We sat in the living room. She sipped the tea Linda brought her, then looked up at me. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. My heart skipped. She paused. "It's Daniel's, but I don't want anything to do with him anymore." I crossed my arms, trying to keep my face unreadable. "Why tell me?" "Because he's planning something stupid. He's angry that the sympathy train is slowing down. He's trying to ruin you." I waited. "He said if the courts won't give him your money, he'll make the world turn on you. And if that fails, he'll break in and take what he wants." I stood slowly. "Did he say that exactly?" She nodded. "And I recorded it." She pulled out her phone and played the audio. Daniel's voice boomed out clearly. "She made a fool out of me in court. But watch, I'll break into that house, live stream it. Say she attacked me first and they'll believe me. All I need is the right timing." I stared at the speaker as the blood drained from my face. He wasn't just bitter. He was unhinged. And he was planning to play the victim again. That night, I called my lawyer. We filed a restraining order extension. But I went one step further. I installed 24/7 surveillance, hired private security, and armed myself with pepper spray, batons, and a panic button that alerted the police in 3 seconds. He wouldn't take my peace. Not again. A week passed, no word from Daniel. The video traffic died down, until I saw a headline. "Man arrested for attempted break-in at ex-wife's mansion. Claims it was a live stream performance." I clicked faster than my heart was beating. The security footage was leaked. There he was, Daniel, climbing my backyard fence at 2 a.m. A GoPro strapped to his chest. Mumbling into a mic, "Just watch. She's the devil. I'm just getting what's mine." Then, flashing lights. Police. Guns drawn. Daniel on the ground screaming, "I'm the victim. She took everything." It went viral. Again. But this time the world didn't sympathize. They saw the truth. Uncut, unscripted, unforgivable. The blogs turned. From husband to intruder, the fall of Daniel Mensah. Ex-wife breaks silence after attempted break-in. He kicked her. She froze everything. Now he's behind bars. I didn't speak to any media outlets. But I did post one thing on my Instagram story. A single slide, black background, white words. When you lie, you need a script. When you live in truth, you just need silence. Thrive in peace. He kicked me and laughed. Daniel was charged with attempted burglary and violating the restraining order. Sandra disappeared from social media. And me? I sat in my garden that night, barefoot, no makeup, no press, just me and the stars. I lit a candle. Not for him. For every woman like me. For every woman told to just let it go. For every woman who stayed silent for too long. Because now, we were speaking, and the world was finally listening. But peace doesn't last forever. 2 days later, I received a letter. From Daniel's mother, handwritten, sealed with wax, mailed from Ghana. And the last line read, "You may have beaten my son in court, but you will not break this family. Watch yourself." And just like that, the next battle had begun. If this story moved you, if you've ever survived something others couldn't see, don't just watch. Tap subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. Let's give power back to the ones who were kicked and left for dead, and show them they're not alone. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if your ex came back with a threat like this? Back at the conference, I looked down at my phone, a new voicemail from Daniel. "Please," his voice cracked. "Just one conversation, no cameras, no guards, just us." I didn't delete it. I didn't respond either, because some chapters don't deserve sequels. They deserve silence. That weekend, I took my daughter shopping. "Mom," she said, tugging on my hand, "can we go to the old thrift store?" I laughed. "The same one?" "Yes, I want to show you something." We walked in. The smell hadn't changed, but the vibe had. People nodded at me now, smiled. A few even whispered, "That's her." My daughter pulled me toward the back. "I want to buy this," she said, holding up a dusty plaque with the words. She remembered who she was, and the game changed. "Perfect," I said, hugging her. "We'll hang it above our front door." She tilted her head. "The mansion one or the apartment?" I smiled. "The one where we feel the most free." That night, as I soaked in the bath with candles around me and silence finally wrapping its arms around my soul, I replayed everything in my mind. The betrayal, the kick, the laughter, the tears, the ice-cold nights I slept wondering who I was without him. Now I knew. I was the woman who didn't just survive being kicked in front of friends. I was the woman who kicked back, in silence, in strategy, and in style. And as for Daniel, he became the cautionary tale. If you followed this story to the end, then you know one thing for sure. Power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it signs paperwork. If this ending made you feel something, smash that like button, leave a comment about your favorite revenge moment, and subscribe to Tino's, because the next story might be yours.